Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Nagel. I am the Public Information Officer here for the Community Development Administration of the City of St. Louis. And we are joined by CDA staff. Um, I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with Karen.
Hello, my name is Karen Hutchins. I am the program manager for our home ARP program and would like to say thank you for tuning in.
And Stephanie Christian.
Good morning, Stephanie Christian, Special Assistant for Development for the Housing Production at CDA.
And Rashonda Alexander. Rashonda is our Director of Compliance joining us. So we do have some public in the room, so we can start this public hearing. I will begin by sharing my screen. So we're here for a substantial amendment to our home ARP allocation plan, and we will get into the details of that led by Karen in a second. First, about the Community Development Administration, we are the clearinghouse or hub of federal, state, and local funds for the city of St. Louis, the city's primary grant-making department, responsible for the Community Development Block Grant, home ARP, ARPA funds, and various other funding, designing grant programs, but also managing those application periods, scoring and rating applicants, and then monitoring grant programs for federal compliance to make sure that all the amazing partners in the city of St. Louis building affordable housing and providing social services, neighborhood development, you name it, working with them to make sure these funds are spent on great projects, and every fund benefits the St. Louis community and is in compliance with our federal partners, with HUD and the Treasury, EPA, et cetera, so we can continue bringing federal funds to the city of St. Louis to do awesome neighborhood development projects. And with that, I will pass it to Karen, who will take us through today's substantial amendment to our home ARP allocation plan.
Well, thank you, Tom. I will start with our home ARP timeline. Back in September 2021, St. Louis City CDA Department received $10,635,523 in funds from our federal HUD program, Home ARP. In the spring and fall of 2022, we conducted a community engagement survey where excellent feedback and information to determine the needs and gaps analysis for our city's housing program. In the winter and spring of 2022 and 2023, we drafted the required allocation plan in order to receive the home ARP funds. In January 2023, we had a public hearing and comment period, and the HUD approved the plan. By February 2024, our first round NOFA was released, and we were so excited about that. We have been soliciting and receiving community stakeholder feedback ever since the program has been initiated. In November 2024, we had a substantial amendment And a substantial amendment is required anytime we make a change to our initial allocation plan. And so we made that change in November 2024. In March of 2025, we had a second round NOFA release. And today, we're here because we have an additional substantial amendment because we are responding to our tornado housing crisis. Next slide. As Tom mentioned earlier, we work very well and comprehensively with agencies throughout the city, starting with our mayor's office, the Department of Human Resources and Services, St. Louis City Continuum of Care, the St. Louis Housing Authority, CREA, which is our Civil Rights Enforcement Agency, and the Commissioner on the Disabled and ADA. The Metropolitan St. Louis Equal Housing Opportunity Council, called EHOC, the Women's Safe House, Paraquad, Gateway Housing First, Horizon Housing, and St. Louis ARC are all stakeholders and partners that we consulted with during our home ARP allocation plan process. Tom? Next slide. Home ARP is specifically funding set aside for what we call qualifying populations. That qualifying populations identified in our CFR 2491.5 includes homeless, at risk of homelessness, fleeing or attempting to flee, including domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assaults, and stalking, and also human trafficking, as it is outlined in the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000. Other populations requiring services or housing assistance to prevent homelessness are also included in this qualifying population. And these are persons who are at great risk of housing instability. Eligible uses for our home ARP program: production or preservation of affordability or affordable housing, tenant-based rental assistance, supportive services, which include rental assistance, which we are here today, the purpose for today, purchase and development of non-congregate housing shelters. Next slide. Our 2023 home ARP needs and gaps analysis that I talked about earlier provided great information on renter household cost burden by income bracket. What cost burden simply means is that homeowners or renters are cost burdened because they're spending over 30% of their income on housing. And so this is determined by what we call AMI, which stands for Area Median Income. And as you can see, the number of renter households that were surveyed, 77,630. And of those, that number, 48.1% was cost burden. And that's a huge number in terms of the needs and gaps in our housing affordability. Next slide. The home ARP allocation plan specifically focused on providing permanent supportive housing. So some of the examples of that are scattered sites. This is important because you don't want a high concentration of low income persons in one place. So scattered sites provide opportunities for low to moderate income households to be integrated into the community. And so we prefer scattered sites in making that provision. Two projects that we're so proud of here in the city of St. Louis is the Doorways 2.0 project. That project is on Jefferson Avenue, called Elliott Place. It opened in 2022, October of 2022. And the project was a $35 million project. And the campus is just beautiful, providing housing services as well as supportive services. And those programs at Doorways include food assistance, counseling, employment assistance, pharmacy, and also self-development program. Another program that we were really excited about was the Veterans Community Project here in the city, located on Grand Boulevard. It included 50 tiny homes with one-to-one support and outreach services. Veterans Community of St. Louis is a nonprofit organization that was responsible for making sure that these veterans had a place to stay. It is a 4-acre campus in the Jeff Vander Lou neighborhood, and it includes a 3,000 square foot village center. There is a kitchen, a wellness program, and classrooms that support this tiny home community, providing housing for our veterans. So as you can see on the slide, there is a huge spectrum of housing, from providing housing from the homeless to market housing. And so we here at CDA have been committed through the HOME-ARP and other programs to provide permanent supportive housing in the city of St. Louis. Next slide. Our HOME-ARP allocation plan HUD approved budget was a total of $10,635,523, as we stated earlier. Of that amount, 36.4% is being utilized for rental assistance or set aside for rental assistance, 47.7% for development of affordable renting housing units, and then additional 6.8% used for supportive services. Next slide. So as I've stated before, we have been actively submitting or soliciting partners to help us spend this $9.6 million. So in 2024, we issued a NOFA, and its focus was on permanent supportive housing and supportive services. That NOFA was released January 29, 2024, and the application deadline was April 30th, 2024. Next slide. In 2025, we released a second NOFA. This amount was $4,896,191, and this NOFA was focusing on permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, non-congregate shelters, and supportive services. This NOFA was released March 14th, 2025, and the application deadline was July 14th, 2025. Next slide. So today we're here to discuss the proposed amendments to the HOME-ARP allocation plan. And as you can see the QR code and the link that is there on your screen, if you would like a copy of that allocation plan, amended draft November 2025, you can access that and print that off for your own personal use. And you can also follow along as we identify the changes or the proposed amendments we are making to the allocation plan. Next slide. So first on page 5, we added to the overview section that we are including rental assistance to support our May 16th tornado victims. And so the language is described there next to that section, page 5. You can find that added language on page 5. Public hearing date was also added. And of course, that is today's date. So we had to add that to the public participation process section found on page 16. We also conducted a land survey of vacant units as a result of the tornado, because we wanted to provide housing for those who were displaced in the tornado and be able to provide affordable housing. And we added that language on page 31. Next slide. Supportive services was also added to include rental assistance, which is an eligible home ARP use, and we find that addition on page 38. Additional funding was also added to supportive services for rental assistance. As I mentioned before, 36.4% of the total grant funding is now set aside for supportive services for rental assistance. Additional funding of 6.8% was also added for supportive services. And again, you can find that amendment on page 39. Next slide. We added at risk of homeless as a preference because this is what the tornado victims, this is the category in which we classified the tornado victims at being at risk of homeless. We found that many are still staying in substandard housing because they have nowhere to go. And we added that language on page 39. We also added a description on page 40 of how CDA will distribute the funds in accordance with the priority needs for this at-risk population. And on page 44, we also added that we are providing services for over 5,000 tornado victims that was impacted May 16th. And you can find that again on page 44. Next slide. So we, in 2024, after we issued the NOFA, we received or granted awards for Jubilee CDC, Freedom Living, Assisi House, and Source 2.0. It is important to note that when we award these organizations, they have to be verified and make sure that they are eligible to receive the funding that we awarded to them. And so currently, out of this 2024 NOFA, we are actually supplying Jubilee CDC and Source 2.0 with the funding that they were awarded. Next slide. Again, this is the supportive services grant awards awarded to GASA, Jubilee CDC, and Assisi House. Currently, GASA and Jubilee CDC are those who are receiving funding for these services. Next slide. Our 2025 Home ARP NOFA was awarded to Campus Tower Affordable Housing Project and the developer Peter and Paul Community Services, who own a tremendous building there on 3225 North Florissant Street, where they are a non-congregate shelter providing housing for homeless and at-risk homeless. They were awarded $902,000 for development. And next slide. They were also awarded $124,174.28 for services to perform employment assistance, job training, food, housing search, counseling services, and other eligible services for the homeless and at-risk population. They are located in the Benton Park West, Ward 7 neighborhood. Next slide. So that includes all of our amendments and also our recipients of our 2025 NOFA. If there are any questions, we can take those questions at this time. Tom, back to you.
Thank you, Karen, and great job. do have some members of the public and a few CDA staff joining us as participants. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead and you can either raise your hand and we'll bring you in live, or we have the chat open to everyone, and go ahead and just type your questions in and we can take your comments. And I do believe we are currently in the public comment period, which will end on December 6th. So 30 days of public comment. You can write your comments as is typical with CDA substantial amendments to cdbg at stlewis-mo.gov. And we can take your comments in writing, or this is the public's opportunity to raise your hand and interact directly with CDA staff to ask your questions and provide your feedback. We operate based on the feedback of the residents we serve and the stakeholders that we impact, and the partners that we work with to do great work for and with and in the city of St. Louis. Not seen any hands raised or any questions in the chat. So I might count to 30 and wait to see if anyone has any questions. I'll put in the chat now a link to this subscribe form on CDA's homepage. Go to the city's website, stlewis-mo.gov/CDA. That's CDA's homepage. There's a link to where you can subscribe to our newsletter. That is the first and best way to learn about everything happening at City CDA. You can also find links there to our news announcements, to our various reports, documents, to a map of CDA neighborhood transformation investments, an interactive map showing all the city investments from housing to social services to childcare, senior services, neighborhood development plans, all sorts of things, vacancy interventions from board ups to rehabs, to renovations all over the city. Tons of resources on CDA's homepage. You'll see at the top of the homepage our landlord inventory survey. We're still seeking input from landlords to find available units as we work with various service providers to place people impacted by the tornado. And for anyone listening, you may note just 2 hours ago, a press release went out announcing Matt Moak will be the new interim executive director of CDA. So a link to that is on CDA's homepage. You can learn about Matt, who's worked for the city of St. Louis for more than 2 decades and will be once again joining CDA as interim executive director. So that's exciting. Any comments from CDA staff before I wind down this meeting and we can get back to enjoying a Friday? Rashonda?
Just want to say great job, Karen, and thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Rashonda.
Thank you, Rashonda. Great. Stephanie?
I was just going to echo the same. Thank you and great job.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Great. And as always, thank you, STL TV. Thank you, Jerry, for facilitating this and all of CDA's public hearings and all of the city's public hearings, helping make all this technology run very smoothly for us. Thank you so much, STL TV. Thanks, Jerry.
You're welcome.
Okay. Great. With that, The public comment period goes until December 6th, and you can write to cdbg@stlewis-mo.gov with your public comments on this home ARP substantial amendment. And with that, everyone enjoy the weekend. Happy Thanksgiving. Everyone stay safe and enjoy the holiday, however you celebrate, and enjoy shopping this weekend. Get ready for whatever side or main you're preparing. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.